My first guest today, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a booked day today. Tomorrow will be a little bit more diving into the news. Today, a lot of great guests. Michael Harrison. Now, Michael Harrison may not be a household name for some of you out there, but for those of us in talk radio, everybody knows you.
Wow.
I mean, pretty much everybody knows you.
Everybody's been very nice to me and very kind, so I appreciate it.
All right, I'll stop that then. So Michael Harrison is the publisher and editor of Talkers Magazine. That is an industry trade magazine. It's considered the biggest one, and that's where we go for our news on the industry. And you're out here. This isn't exactly, you don't do an immigration thing. You're not like an immigration activist. But I saw your name on the list, and I'm like, I've got to have him on.
Oh, that's really nice of you. I think immigration is an important topic from the standpoint of broadcasting. I think it's an important topic from the standpoint of the First Amendment, and that's what attracts me to this event. Not to mention, there are 60 talk show hosts here, and these are my people. So, sure. I'm going to be where the talk radio action is. This is a very big event, 13 years in a row, as you pointed out. But immigration reform has been a topic that shows the pertinence of talk radio. There are some topics that everybody's talking about, but there are certain topics over the years that talk radio has specifically made its own and keeps it out there when the rest of the media ignores it. And that was the case for many years with immigration reform.
You could argue that's still the case now, too, Michael. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump, he launched his campaign with an immigration platform, and that had been the first person to really do so at that big of a level. He certainly made it grandiose, even though other candidates have talked about it. And it's something, I've been in the business for 14 years. I know that I'm not the most experienced guy in the industry, but this was a topic when I was a P1 listening to talk radio before I got in the business. It has been a topic every single week, I think, since I have been in the business, even when the news wasn't covering it.
Correct. Yeah, Donald Trump did make it a front burner issue. And it's unusual over the years, every year that I've come to this, I think every year for 13 years, you always know by the buzz in the hallways where immigration reform is in the pantheon, in the hierarchy of issues. Sure. And right now, it would have been obviously the perfect coming together of the moon and the stars, the sun this year, but it just so happens on the day that this begins, we have this bigger issue, and the Ukraine and impeachment formal inquiry. So that's been confusing because you have 70 talk show hosts here who want to talk about the impeachment issue, and you have 140 guests who are here to talk about immigration.
Something totally different, right? I know, I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I booked myself on the first day, and I can't even hit the topic really until 4:30. So,
right.
But, hey, it is what it is.
But I'm here, fortunately, I'm kind of a relief from that, and it's amazing how much interest there is, not only among the broadcasters, but the listeners, in how does this all work? What media is such an interesting topic, and we're living at a time where we're evolving so rapidly with our technology and our media and the sociology attached to that's really the overriding story. It's even the bigger story than the amazing Donald Trump presidency, because the Donald Trump presidency is a media story.
It certainly is.
Isn't it?
Without a doubt. I mean, absolutely. And, I think the president would even say, look, people have been harping on this immigration issue for a long time. What's interesting about talk radio is that we really have kind of kept that in the news. We've reminded people of it, even when it kind of went away. And eventually, you got a candidate who made it their platform, and they ultimately were elected. And then, of course, what else do we get to talk about? The fact that he hasn't been able to implement that platform because of obstruction and things of that nature, depending on what side you're on. So it's interesting to watch that. But, you brought up technology. And I always found this amazing. I chose to come to work for Federated Media 8 years ago because I was leaving one of the bigger companies in talk radio who said we weren't allowed to podcast, we weren't allowed to have blogs, we weren't allowed to post on social media as ourselves or tie anything because it was all a liability. And I was sitting there pounding my fist like, you guys are missing the boat. You're missing the boat. And they did. And I came to Federated Media because they embraced that evolving technology. And I get a lot of questions about that from listeners, especially younger listeners who are concerned, is radio going to be around? Are they dying? How many times have we been killed off?
No, radio has been killed off longer than any other modern medium.
And we keep growing.
Yeah, it does. But we're at a time now where all media is on shaky ground in terms of the iconic nature of the platforms. The television set, the television station, the radio station, the tower, the transistor radio, the table radio, the clock radio. All of these things are part of our sociology. That's changing. Everything 5, 10 years from now, these, I'm holding this up to your video camera, the smartphone.
Yeah.
These are going to be clunky old things. People are going to laugh.
Absolutely.
They're going to look at it. Everyone's walking around with their Oracle in their hand, looking at it. This big clunky thing that, of course, during its time is being promoted as being sleek. It's going to be seamless. It's going to be internal. We're going to have little implants. We're going to have. I know he's looking at me.
Oh no! I've been telling my audience about this for a long time. Like, you're going to wake up one day to my voice. I'm just going to be your alarm clock, and I'm going to start telling you the news one day.
We're going to have passwords in our mind. It'll be a number, a combination of blink your left eye once, your right eye twice, twitch your nose like Samantha the Witch, wiggle your ears, and all of a sudden you'll get a movie.
And people laugh, but this is our job to stay up on this stuff. And I talk about it quite a bit just because I'm a geek anyway. But I talk about this with my audience, and I've got a younger audience than is general with a talk radio audience. And so some of them really get it. They understand. But, our job is to stay up on this new technology. So we see it.
Yeah.
I'm doing remote broadcasts from an iPad now. We used to have the Marty system. We had to have a whole vehicle for it.
You had to have a truck.
There
would have been trucks out in the parking lot.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Now we got a nice little mobile platform we set on the table, and we're able to go ahead and broadcast.
Of course, what you have to understand, too, you talk about the audience also understands this technology. We have audiences that know everything going on because they're plugged into the same news sources that we are. Used to be the radio station had the AP machine. People didn't have AP machines in their houses. So the radio station was where you had to go to find the news or the weather or what was going on. But now there isn't one service of information that radio or TV or newspapers can provide to anybody that they can't get instantaneously on their smartphone. So you have to take the conversation one level further.
You do.
Because you're now talking to the informed.
And everybody's interactive. They hear you say something, they look it up right away.
Right.
There's no just relying
it's killed trivia. It's killed the radio trivia game. Forget it.
It's really who can Google the fastest at this point in time. When you look at some of the technology that we have, Michael, and some of the advances that are coming out, of course, we've kind of talked about, some of this stuff going forward and how it's going to be implemented and things like that. How are we on the ratings front? Because ratings are always something that radio looks at. Now, my station doesn't talk about ratings all that much, although my ratings are very good. I'm not supposed to say that officially. But we have a system where there's still diaries, and we have some electronic stuff, depends on the market. None of it's really accurate. And when you have, 30 to 50% of your audience is streaming on a platform, and it's not being registered, what's on the horizon when it comes to actually managing the true audience of radio?
It's very, very hard to find the true audience numbers. I thought that the ratings were inaccurate, to be kind. Even back in the day, I was one of the first people. We're talking decades ago. I've been doing this a very long time. I was doing this long before talkers. I was a voice in the industry, and I used to say that the ratings were a lie that we all share in. That it's the best thing. It's the best thing we have. More people gained by it than lost by it. But we always have known the ratings are very, very. The key word is estimates. They're estimates,
right.
And they still are. The problem today is mixing the apples and oranges of over-the-air radio with online listening. And without getting too deep into the weeds with this for the listeners, let's just say it's complicated and hard to do, and that talk radio especially gets the short end of the stick, because I think more people are listening to talk radio online than offline. Now, the ratings will not bear that out.
Sure.
So you can't research the accuracy of what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think that the research is not right. I think that I just think it's inaccurate, and I don't know if we're ever going to get to a point where we're going to really know true metrics. That's what it's called, metrics. So what's going to drive the business end of this, because it's really for the business end that we have these ratings to sell advertising, is going to be results, whether or not the advertising gets results. The nature of the programming will indicate the nature of the audience, because everything is targeted. You just go, okay, Suppose there's a golf channel. Well, we know that they're not going to have Milton Berle television show numbers or Super Bowl numbers with a golf channel. But if you want to sell golf clubs, the odds are the people listening are buying golf clubs.
100%.
So the nature of the audience is defined by the nature of the programming. And the buyers are going to have to be more educated as to know, does this station sound like anybody's listening, or does it not? Because otherwise you're going to get some person out of college who doesn't know anything about radio in some advertising agency looking at a book of faulty ratings, making advertising buys that are not based on anything but distortion. So it's kind of scary if you think about it.
And knowing your customer and who your target demo is. Because if you're selling a luxury car, maybe don't sell a lot of advertising on a radio station that caters to 13-year-old kids.
Exactly.
Maybe not the best move.
Or to people that maybe can't afford a luxury car.
Sure.
And there is that element too. So you got to be educated. So radio sales departments are going to have to do a lot of educating.
Absolutely.
And of course, then you got to get results. If you don't get results, you know, when people hear all these promo codes and things of that nature, that's not there to give you a deal. That's there for the advertiser. Maybe I'm giving away secrets, but heck, that's there for the advertiser to know whether or not the commercial's working.
That's it. That's why when I have those codes, people use them.
Use them.
When I tell you to go to Second Amendment Arms and Range, you better mention me, because you not only save money, but it lets them know that their advertising works on the station. I'm talking with Michael Harrison. He's a publisher and editor of Talkers Magazine. He's an industry insider. Can you hang out with us for one more segment? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I can.
And we'll get you out of here by 3:30.
Oh, I'm fine.
Cool?
I'm fine.
All right,
yes.
Perfect. We got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. And I'm speaking with Michael Harrison. He is the publisher and editor of Talkers Magazine. I'm broadcasting live from Hold Their Feet to the Fire 2019. This is the 13th year in a row that this has happened in Washington, D.C., and Michael is an insider in our industry. We all know who he is. You may not, but I had an opportunity to pick his brain and talk about things that you ask me about the radio industry, and we've had a pretty fun conversation so far.
It's been very interesting, and people do like that. They want to know.
You know, we were talking about promo codes, and then what did we hear through the commercial break? Promo codes. And yeah, exactly. Now, let's talk about premium content, because we talked a little bit about technology going forward, how to know what kind of ratings you have and that sort of thing. And I'm a big advocate for podcasting, and I have been for many, many years. I know that there's still some people in radio who view them as they're amateurs, they're not on their same level. I just totally disagree with that. I think that podcasting is a great way to develop new talent, and we've done that. In fact, some of the people who filled in for me this week, we found through podcasting, and we continue to develop them through podcasting, and now they're air ready, and they're great. Some of them have gone on to work at Blaze Media and some others. So we've really done a good job doing that. Do you think companies are embracing this new technology to help develop new talent, or we still have a way to go with that?
I think a lot of them are. Some of them haven't got a clue yet. But there's no question that online, not just podcasting and online broadcasting is the place that on-air broadcasting will have to turn to get new talent, because the old farm system of working your way up from one market to another market to another market, and everybody being interested in what was going on and sending out tapes to bigger stations and all that, those days are over. And they're over for a lot of reasons. But the real creativity and the real action is online. Now, that's not to say, you said something that, you know, podcasting is not amateurish. It's very amateurish in some ways.
In some
and you know what podcasting is? It's like the invention of the typewriter. Typewriters don't write novels. Amateur writers write on typewriters, and brilliant, you know, Pulitzer Prize winners write on typewriters. Podcasting is a tool. It's a system to make it easier for people to be able to communicate through the form of an audio show. I say audio because there's also video podcasts, but those tend to be called videos. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we usually now I've got the video camera on you right now. I'm recording this, but we're not live streaming this. I usually live stream on Twitch, and I live stream on YouTube. I stopped doing it on Facebook because they're messing with me. But I do that for the benefit of people who are maybe in a cubicle and they can't do the website, you know, or they want to actually see what happens during the commercial breaks and things like that. There's that curiosity, like we talked about. The audience is genuinely curious about what we do and how we do it.
Right. In this case, you video the guest.
Correct.
Okay. They're not seeing you as well.
They're not seeing me this time. I only brought one camera with me.
Okay, so they hear you.
They hear me,
and they see the guest.
It's like an interview format, like 60 Minutes.
Interesting,
Weird.
isn't it?
Weird how that works.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who do really, really good podcasts who could never do a radio show. And there's a lot of people who do radio shows who do really good niche podcasts. And we've got several of them in our building. I know that I used to do a beer podcast. It was very popular. And, you know, you find that niche, and it's like, hey, now you have a radio talent who also has an outlet to go do something.
One of the problems in podcasting is they're playing the numbers game, where every podcast is considered a failure unless it is in the top 10 of all the podcasts. And that defeats the point.
Right.
The whole point of podcasting is a specialized qualitative audience as opposed to necessarily a quantitative one.
Sure.
And for those that don't know what that means, think about it and you'll figure it out. You know, one person who's prone to buy your product is a lot better than and 100 people hearing about it who are not prone to it. So it's a qualitative audience versus a quantitative audience. And that is a major thing when it comes to buying advertising. We touched on it earlier. So podcasting is great for that, but I hear all these podcasters saying, how do I make my podcast gigantic? Well, your podcast wasn't meant to be gigantic, but everybody who's interested in garden snails is going to listen to your podcast about garden snails.
Now, there are people who try to do what talk radio hosts do, and some of them are successful. They build a niche. They're really good at promoting themselves online, and others aren't so successful. But there's a sea of people that are doing the same thing,
right?
And you've got to find that niche to really stand out, and then you can build an audience and slowly start adding things to it.
Right.
But speaking of podcasting and that technology, we only have like a minute or two. Talk about premium content. Because this is something going forward, we kind of mentioned it during the commercial break here. Premium content going forward might be something you're going to see more and more radio stations.
As long as it's premium. As long as it's something.
You mean I can't charge them for the same thing that I'm giving them anyway?
Once you give it away for free, it's hard to get people to. So you really got to be good. A lot of people don't understand the importance of quality, the importance of being good. They just think by doing it, they are it because they are it. But you have to do it to be it. And for people to pay money for something, it's got to be really something they want. Think of your own habits as a consumer. Even if it's $1 a month, hey, for $1 a week, blah, blah, blah. Then in 3 months, we're going to charge you $100 a week, but we aren't going to tell you. Sure. There's all those doubts people have. But if it's something people want, they'll pay for it. They'll pay more money for bottled water than bottled gasoline. They'll pay money for cheap sneakers that have a fancy logo on it. If it's something they want, they have to want it. So premium content, big part of the future, big part of the present, but don't just put garbage out there and expect people to pay it. And I'm not saying that you're doing garbage or anyone is doing garbage, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
Everything has to be worked on today. People don't have time for mediocre product or for people just wasting time. Time is money to people.
Any suggestions or ideas that you've seen radio stations do to monetize premium content? Or are they still kind of discovering what to do?
I think they're still discovering it. But I think that for radio to succeed in sales, you have to create marketable events. Every listening moment has to be an event, and you have to create events that you can sell sponsorships to. Events and moments. It's no longer the continuum of people just happen to listen to that station and they're the habit of it. They can go to something else. Moments and events.
There you go. Michael Harrison from Talkers Magazine, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey.
We got more coming up from News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.